Why does your world feel like a collection of cool ideas that never quite connect? Why do you have a map, a magic system, 3 character concepts, a vibe, and still feel like you haven't actually built anything? Here's a fantasy example. Imagine a world builder who has spent 6 months on their continent. They have a gorgeous hand-drawn map. They have a pantheon. They have a tragic backstory for a character who doesn't have a world to live in yet. And every time they sit down to actually write, they freeze. They don't have a creativity problem. They have a process problem. And more specifically, it is a mismatch between how your brain naturally works and the method you're trying to force it through. By the end of this video, you will know exactly which type of world builder you are, where your brain gets stuck and how to use one simple framework to start building in a way that actually fits how you think. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to trace how 6 different kinds of minds approach world building, and where each one hits a wall. And then we're going to look at a single framework called the WOAC cycle and show how it meets each of those minds exactly where they already are. This isn't a one-size-fits-all tutorial, not at all. It's more like a diagnostic. You're going to recognize yourself somewhere in here, probably pretty quickly. And when you do, that's your entry point. We're not going to fix everything today, but we are going to get you unstuck. If you want to jump around, there are chapters and timestamps in the description. But I'd encourage you to watch the whole thing at least once, because the types bleed into each other more than you would expect. I am very, very curious as well which type you are. Please let me know down in the comments or hop on our Discord server. Before we get to the types, we need the same foundation. The WOAC cycle is a 4-part loop that drives all believable world building. The reason it works is very simple. It mimics how intelligent beings actually behave. It's not a list of things to invent, it is a model of causality. Here's the loop. Want. Given the current situation, what does the group need or desire? Obstacle. What prevents them from getting it? Action. What do they do to overcome the obstacle? And consequence. What new situation does their action create? And then the consequence becomes the new context that triggers the next cycle. You run it again and again, and what you get is a living system where things happen because other things already happened. And that is the engine. One loop, run recursively, and it generates culture, politics, religion, conflict, all of it. Now, the reason I'm telling you this before we get to the types is that the framework doesn't care how your brain works. The framework is neutral. What does matter is where you enter it. And that's different for every kind of mind. Let's get into the types. Type of world builder number 1. The visual thinker. You know who you are. Your world building folder has 3 maps, 2 mood boards, a color palette, and a Pinterest board titled something like Dark Academia Forest Kingdom Vibes. You can see your world. You just cannot quite explain what's happening inside of it. And the trap is this. Visuals are outputs, not engines. So a mountain range is beautiful, but a mountain range that exists.
Because 2 tectonic plates collided, which cut off a civilization from its trade routes, which forced them to develop a merchant navy, which made them the most powerful empire on the continent.
That mountain range is doing work. The visual is not the problem. The problem is that the visual is floating around somewhere. It is not connected to anything underneath. Your door to WOAC is the map itself. Don't abandon it. Use it as your first want. Look at the geography and ask, why does this exist and what problem does it create? The river delta on the map. Who wants to control it? What's stopping them? What have they done about it? What did that create? And you already have the image. Now you're asking the image to mean something. That is your shift. So in short, for the visual thinker, the map is not the destination. It is the first question. Type of world builder number 2. The abstract thinker. You live in themes. You have a premise that genuinely makes people stop and think. What if memory was a commodity? What if gods needed worship to survive, but worship made them corrupt? These are fascinating, but they are also on their own completely unwritable. The trap is altitude. You're flying at 30,000 feet and the world looks incredible from up here, but no one lives at 30,000 feet. The abstract premise is not the world, it's the pressure the world is under, right? And pressure only becomes story when it lands on specific people in a specific place on a specific day. Your door into WOAC is forced specificity. Take your abstraction and compress it down to a single village on a single Tuesday morning. If memory is a commodity, what does the baker in the market square want today? What's stopping him? What does he do? What happens because of it? You don't have to abandon the grand theme. You just have to make it land somewhere. WOAC forces you to ask, what does this mean for one person right now? Type of world builder number 3, the speedrunner. You write first and think later. You have 3 chapters, a protagonist with a complicated past, a city that feels real, and a magic system that works completely differently in chapter 1 than it does in chapter 3. You didn't plan any of it, you just went. There's a real strength in here. You have momentum. You have things that surprised even yourself. That's gold. The problem is that by page 40 your world is contradicting itself already, and you don't know which version is the real one. And the trap is not that you wrote without a plan. The trap is thinking you now have to throw it all out and start over with a spreadsheet. You don't. Your door into WOAC is the retroactive audit. You're not using WOAC to build forward, you're using it to find what's already there and make it consistent. Go back through what you've written. Find a moment where a character does something because of how their world works. And now ask, what did that group want? What was the obstacle? What action did they take? What was the consequence? And if the answer is already in your pages, great, you have identified a loop. Now check, does the rest of the world support it? And if not, you know exactly what to fix. WOAC becomes your diagnostic tool, not a replacement for what you've built. It's a lens to see it clearly. Type of world builder number 4, the architect. You are the speedrunner's opposite, and you know it. You have a spreadsheet, you have a climate model, you have a document titled Linguistic Drift in the Northern Provinces that is 14 pages long and has never been read by anyone, including you, more than once. You are building forever. You are never writing. The trap is the illusion of progress. Every new system you design feels like world building. And it is technically, but a world with no story is just a very elaborate thought experiment. At some point the building has to stop and the using has to start. The real fear underneath the architect's trap is usually this: if I start writing, I'll find out the system doesn't work. And that is true, you will. But that's not failure, that's the system doing its job. Your door into WOAC is constrained, not more scope, less scope. Pick one culture, run 10 cycles on it, and that's it, that's your assignment. 10 cycles will give you a history, a power structure, a set of cultural tensions, and at least 2 conflicts worth writing about. And it will take you a fraction of the time your current approach is taking. World building type number 5, the feeler. Your world has a feeling. You know it in your chest. It is melancholic and beautiful and slightly dangerous. You can describe the atmosphere in your world better than most published authors can. The problem is that when someone asks you why it feels that way, you don't have an answer. And without an answer, you cannot really build it, can you? The trap is mistaking the emotional truth for the structural truth. The feeling is real, but the feelings don't come from nowhere. They come from conditions. And conditions are built by people making choices under pressure. Your door into WOAC is tracing the feeling back to its cause. Start with the atmosphere. It feels oppressive. Okay, who benefits from that oppression? What do they want? What was the obstacle that led them to build a system of control? What action did they take? What were the consequences for everyone else? The feeling is the output of a WOAC loop that already happened. Your job is to find the loop that created it. And once you do, the atmosphere stops being a vibe and starts being a world. And you will find that the feeling gets stronger once it has roots. World builder type number 6, the researcher. This is me. You have read everything. You have 3 books on medieval grain economics, a deep understanding of Byzantine court politics. You are, by any measure, extremely well prepared. You're also not building anything. The trap is using research as a substitute for decision making. Every time you sit down to actually construct something, you realize there's one more thing you need to understand first. One more source, one more rabbit hole, and the research feels productive. And it is productive in a sense, but it's also a very comfortable way to avoid the terrifying act of choosing. Because choosing means committing. And committing means being wrong. And being wrong about your world feels somehow like being wrong about yourself. Here's the tough love version. Research is an obstacle, not an action. In WOAC terms, you have identified what you want, a well-grounded world. You have identified the obstacle. You don't know enough yet. But you have confused more research with the action. The action is making a decision with what you have. Your door into WOAC is using the framework to force a choice. You have enough. You have more than enough. Pick a group. Give them a want. Give them an obstacle. Make them do something and see what happens. The research doesn't disappear. You can always research more. It becomes the texture of the decisions your people make. But it has to serve the loop, not replace it. One more important thing. Here's your one task before the next video. Figure out which type you are. And I suspect you already know. Run one WOAC cycle from your entry point. Just one. A group, a want, an obstacle, and an action. Also a consequence. Write it in a paragraph. Don't make it perfect, make it exist. That paragraph is your new start. So whatever your reason is, you never actually end up using your world. Now you know why. Good luck being unstuck.